Chapter 8. Assault by Night. Robin longed to see Maid Marian once again. He knew that she was staying at Gamwell Hall now, as a guest of Squire Gamwell. Word had come to Robin that not many days after he had gone away from Gamwell Hall with his mother, a party of the sheriff's men had come to the hall and charged Squire Gamwell with having shot one of the king's deer. There had been a great battle between the sheriff's men and the servants of Squire Gamwell. The guests that were staying at the hall also joined in. Amongst them was Marian's father. At the height of the battle, Marian's father went to an open window and shot at the sheriff's men. He killed many of the men with his fine shooting, but he was at last shot himself. He was taken into an inner room, and a little later he died. Squire Gamwell felt very sorry for the little maid Marian, and he told her that she could stay at Gamwell Hall with him for as long as she wished. So Robin set off with Little John to Gamworth Hall, to see once more his childhood friend. Squire Gamwell was delighted to see Robin again. Robin introduced Little John to the squire, and the two became friends at once. Robin's cousin, Will Gamwell, was glad that his old friend had returned. They talked for a long time. Robin told Will all that had happened since he left the hall, and he added that if ever Will wanted to join his band, he could offer him a life of freedom and excitement. Robin, Will Gamwell and Little John were talking through the hall with Maid Marian, laughing and joking about old times, when Squire Gamwell burst in upon them with a very worried face. "We are surrounded," he said. "The sheriff's men must have found out about you coming here." Robin rushed at once to the window and peered into the forest beyond the grounds of the hall. He saw the sheriff's men hiding in the undergrowth. There were many of them. They were well armed, and it was clear that they were in deadly earnest. "This may be the end of everything," said Squire Gamwell. Robin and Little John laughed. "It's just the sort of thing that makes life worth living," said Little John. A tall, broad-shouldered member of the sheriff's company bent his bow and shot an arrow towards the hall. "The fight has begun," said Robin. It was now getting dark, and little could be gained by either side. Robin knew that the next day would bring with it the full force of the battle. He knew also that he could take advantage of the blackness of the night to defeat the sheriff. He quickly worked out a plan that could be put into force at once. "We'll show them that we are not afraid," he cried. "Who will swim the moat with me and surprise these varlets?" Robin never asked anyone to do what he himself would not do. Little John quickly joined him. In those days all the largest halls had moats around them as a protection against attack. The sheriff's men had drawn themselves together in the forest as night fell, feeling sure that nothing would happen until the light of day. Will Gamwell followed Little John and joined Robin. Finally, two of Squire Gamwell's servants also volunteered to help. It was an easy matter for Robin and his four friends to swim the moat and to clamber onto the bank without being seen. As they reached the encampment where the sheriff's men were resting, Robin very quickly told the others what he meant to do. It needed brave men to pounce upon those sleeping soldiers, for once awakened there would be little chance of escape for the attackers. But Robin stepped fearlessly forward. With the other men close behind him, he charged into the sleeping men, and swords flashed left and right. The sheriff's men were soon awake. They sprang up at once. They could not understand what was happening, for it was quite dark, and there was a scene of complete confusion. In the blackness of the night, the sheriff's men attacked each other, not knowing who was who. Everyone was fighting with whatever weapon he could lay his hands on, and in the melee that followed, Robin and his 4 gallant friends withdrew and made again for the moat. 4 of them were able to escape into the water and to swim safely to the hall, but the 5th one was slower than the rest, and he was caught by 2 of the sheriff's men. Robin at once started to go back to the rescue of the servant, but Squire Gamwell, when he knew what had happened, would not hear of it. He wanted the servant rescued, but it was very doubtful whether the sheriff's men could do anything with their captive until daylight. "Wait till morning," he said. Robin arranged that all the men should take it in turns to keep watch from the hall all through the night, so that any move on the part of the sheriff and his men could be spotted. Then he ordered all the other members who were not acting as sentries to go to sleep. He wanted them to be fresh for the battle on the following day. Maid Marian was the first to rise. She called to the others as soon as day broke. "Come," she called to Robin, "see from this window what the men are doing with our servant." Robin sprang to the window and saw that the servant was about to be hanged by the sheriff's men. There was no time to be lost. He ordered the defenders of the hall to finish the meal that they were eating and make ready for an attack. He went to the window again. One of the men had climbed a tree. He carried over his shoulder a length of rope. This he tied to a bough of the tree. Underneath the bough stood the 2nd man with the servant, who was awaiting his end without fear. Robin called to Will Gamwell. "Shoot the man in the tree," he said, "and whatever happens, do not miss." Will Gamwell aimed his bow carefully. Just as the arrow was winged to the target, Robin shot at the man on the ground. Both of the sheriff's men fell. The man in the tree came tumbling through the branches and lay still on the ground. The servant was now free, and he lost no time in running towards the moat. In he plunged and swam desperately for the hall. Friendly hands pulled him safely out of the water when he reached the other side. The sheriff's men had had enough. They knew that only a long siege would now make Robin and the defenders of Gamwell Hall give in. So they withdrew, for they had not come prepared for a prolonged conflict. They returned to the sheriff's castle and told him of what had taken place. He was furious when he learned of their failure. "Robin Hood must be taken," he stormed. "If you simpletons cannot take him, I shall do it with my own hands." Not many days were to pass before the sheriff had that chance. End of chapter 8.